Yes, we can see it.
Okay, that's great. So yes, as I said, I am the short notice stand-in for Carl. So I may not be as up to speed on this as he. Well, I won't be as up to speed on this as he was. I'm a BBC archivist, and a lot of my involvement when it comes to social media is locating accounts, organising delivery of assets, quality assurance of content, and processes, rather than the actual mechanics of the technology. However, we do have AJ and Nathan on the call as well, I believe, who are both systems engineers. They've dealt with Instaloader a lot, have a lot more experience than I do. I'm hoping if you've got any technical questions, they'll be able to jump in and help with that. Okay, so let's begin with asking the question. So we're going to be doing Instaloader, which we use for capturing our Instagram accounts. And the first thing to really get to is why do we do it? Why does the BBC archive not only its Instagram accounts, but in different forms, all its social media accounts in general? The BBC has over 1,000 social media accounts, and they're spread across Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. These days, the BBC has a more structured approach to its social media output, but as is the case whenever there's a new development in how we communicate, early adopters across the BBC were quick to set up accounts for all sorts of programmes, activities, initiatives, etc. As since 2016, BBC Archives has attempted to identify the disparate accounts that exist, discover the account holders, the status of the accounts, whether or not they're dormant or active, and get a copy of the content that they hold. The reason we do that is because the BBC has a royal charter which requires us to keep an archive of all the content we produce, not just television and radio programmes, but everything. So, for example, we have a written archive centre in Caversham, which exists to hold the written history of the corporation. That includes contracts, scripts, licensing agreements, business emails from outgoing staff. And in that same vein, we need to keep an archive of our burgeoning social media outreach. So we have a corporate record of BBC promotion, an asset for historical and cultural research, and for future repurposed usage in BBC productions. Okay, so if we go to the next card. So here we've got 4 examples of BBC Instagram accounts: BBC Sounds, EastEnders, Bite Size, which for those of you in the UK who were teaching at home last year, you might be more familiar with that now than you were beforehand, and BBC News. I'm assuming most of you are familiar with Instagram, but for those who may not be, the platform consists of vertical content, is a mixture of pictures, audio, video, multiple parts, and sometimes repurposed media, which certainly in the case of the BBC is always relevant to this specific account. They're very popular accounts, not just these 4, all of our BBC accounts. As you can see, EastEnders has over 720,000 followers. BBC News has 17.7 million followers. There's approximately 200 BBC Instagram accounts, and we archive most of them. I'll go to the next sec. So we already had solutions for Twitter and for YouTube, but we needed an option for Instagram. And what we went with is called Instaloader, which is open source software that we learnt about actually at a DPC event in Edinburgh in 2019. So we downloaded it from GitHub, which is a community for open source material. And initially we focused on 30 accounts that were closing down. There's some advantages in going about it this way. If Instagram bring about changes that breaks the capture code, as is often the case, an open source community is more likely to release a fix quicker than an in-house engineer with lots of other business critical requirements. Also, an automatic capture system reduces the need for staff involvement that you'd have with a manual system. Imagine the staff hours needed to manually capture daily content from over 200 accounts. By having a consistent file naming scheme, it allows us also in the future to develop and easily make the an asset searchable and browsable collection, though that isn't something we're currently able to do. Now, to give you an idea, this is the scale of the capture after 2 years. The BBC consistently publishes over 2,000 videos and 4,000 images on Instagram each month. As such, we're possibly unique in that level of retention, and we're currently very, very comprehensive with our capture. In the new year, we're going to be reviewing our selection process a little bit to sort of weed down what we keep and what we don't. 1 second. When it comes to usage, Instaloader requires someone with engineering and code experience to deploy, so we rely a lot on our systems engineers. The tool provides some common functions throughout the command line interface, and it can be used to download entire profiles. Through the command line, you can install it onto your PC or server and run a command to start the capture process without any scripting needed. It can be run from a standalone desktop laptop, provided it has Python installed and you've got sufficient storage to hold the assets captured. Obviously, in our case, we've got a lot of assets, so we run our version from a local server. To do this, you need to have an Instagram account, and as such, we have a series of dummy accounts set up. It's just not practical to run it off an individual's account, and that safeguards us against an individual's account being shut down or blocked if Instagram deems it not to be a genuine account. The alternative would be to try and not sign in at all, but that might mean our IP address gets temporarily blocked to stop us accessing them without being logged in. Currently, we upload the assets to AWS S3 buckets and periodically store the assets on LTO tapes. However, our script requires the files to be stored locally so that it is able to determine what posts have already been captured. There's also some level of maintenance. Adding to and removing accounts requires some manual intervention from the engineering team. Due to issues with regards to Instagram blocking requests from web crawlers, our script may stop running. When that happens, the engineering team are sent an email alert so that they can investigate. Usually, the fix is to restart the script after a period of cooldown. If our dummy account has been blocked, then we roll over to a new dummy account. In our case, there is server maintenance to consider. However, as this server is used for other applications, it is already maintained by the engineering team. When it comes to shortcomings, there were issues with requests being blocked by Instagram, and we found the built-in rate controller was not enough to mitigate requests being blocked. So we added preventative measures to our code, such as cycling through our dummy accounts. Instaloader may not work with all cloud platforms. When we tried to run the Instagram archiver on AWS, Instagram was able to identify the IP as an Amazon IP address and denied requests from it. Obviously, with all open source software, it's a great tool, but there's no guarantee how well it will operate in the future. There's also no inbuilt interface to search and browser capture detail, so improvements to access do need to be looked at in the future. That's mostly us. The next few slides you can peruse at your leisure, as they will be made available to you. This here is the example of the code. Following on from that, we've got a few workflows. So that's our capture process. That's how we go about adding accounts. That's our monthly reporting. And finally, here's an example of our file storage. As mentioned, we have no interface as such. So currently, searching for something requires an advanced awareness of its existence in the first place. But this current process allows us to initially safeguard the content, and that's what we're really focusing on. We want to be certain that we've got hold of it, and then we'll have a view towards building an interface in the future, or maybe adding it to a pre-existing system. Okay, thanks.